Sometimes there are games so great, they make you wonder what the hell you've been wasting your time playing for the last decade. Sometimes there are games so terrible you wonder whether or not your parents are right and you're just too old for this. Solasta is neither of those things, but carries with it something special, the heart of adventure beloved by RPG nerds everywhere. Hello and welcome to Worst RPG Ever, this series where I play a bunch of different RPGs and give my takes on the good, the bad, and the ugly of that game's design. Today I bring you Solasta, Crown of the Magister, the first game developed and produced by Tactical Adventures, a small studio of around 30 people who develop games within the realm of D&D. On the surface, it's your standard CRPG, deriving most of its material from the D&D 5e rule set. But the biggest impact this game has had is arguably the incredibly in-depth Dungeon Maker toolkit. You can design your own custom dungeons using base assets from the game. Create and edit your own encounters, items, and drops. You can create custom intros for your dungeons. And you can even download and play dungeons created by other members of the online community. The majority of the mods that exist for this game are custom campaigns created by its fans. The tremendous community impact is absolutely worthy of recognition and proper respect, which is all the more reason why it's such a shame that this game feels unfinished. Solasta is Tactical Adventure's first game, and the rough edges are all there. Ugly character models, terrible voice acting, inconsistent interactions, and a lot of awkward standing around. While I don't want to harp too much on them, my goal first and foremost is to demand better from creators for players, and make observations that can make their games better going forward. At the time of writing, the sequel, Solasta 2, has released in early access, and from the demo alone, I can tell they've cleaned up a lot of the uglier aspects of the initial game, in addition to bringing on professional major talent to bring the story to life. But today, we're going to examine those rough edges under a microscope until I can finally answer the question, Solasta, Crown of the Magister, is it the worst RPG ever? Open the game and the most bizarre thing jumps out at me. Why the hell is there a tutorial box for the main menu? If players are confused about the game from the moment you open it up to the point where you feel the need to tutorialize it, just fix your menu. We've all been to restaurants, we can read. Select your campaign and pick your character. You must start the game with 4, no solo runs allowed. You can also pick any combination of classes you like, but the gear selection is rather limited, so it's better if everyone isn't the same. There are multiple DLC locked options for each of these, and the game makes sure they are all front and center so the player knows exactly what they're missing out on. I'm not going to get into the specifics of every class and race, but the base game's races are dwarves, half-elves, humans, elves, and halflings. Some of the races have sub-races, with dwarves separated into hill and snow dwarves, elves into high or sylvan, and halflings into the marsh or island variety. Whichever race you select determines base movement speed and race-based stat bonuses, which means that certain races are min-max race for their chosen class. This won't make any difference with how characters interact with you, but roleplay background details and language will. You can also select your gender, but every dialogue option in the game addressing the party uses the neutral they, so it doesn't actually matter. Your character's class determines what kind of abilities they have and preferred playstyle. The classes available in the base game are Cleric, Fighter, Paladin, Ranger, Rogue, and Wizard. Sorcerers were also added as unpaid DLC, which is always cool to see from the developers. There is no multi-classing, which would mean a single character can take abilities from several different classes at once, but they have added it in the sequel. After picking your class, choose how you want to determine your stats, and this one is a bit lacking in explanation. Baldur's Gate 1 players know this system, but it's been made confusing by the inclusion of the 5th edition point buy system. Let me explain. There are 2 ways you can typically determine your base stats in D&D, random dice or point buy. Point buy puts all the base stats at 8 and you assign points from a pool of 27, however you like, with the highest unboosted stat possible of 17. This is the system used in Baldur's Gate 3. Or you can choose dice rolls, which will randomly generate dice with no apparent stat limit. This is the system used in Baldur's Gate 1 and 2. If you want higher stats, this is what you'll be going with. There's no limit on the number of times you can reroll dice, so there's no reason not to do this if you want the absolute highest numbers possible, with a maximum level per stat of 20. After assigning stats, pick extra proficiencies which give a bonus to certain skills whenever you do the thing associated with that skill. Base stat proficiencies are dependent upon class, and you can acquire more through leveling up. Finally, edit appearance, and there is no sugarcoating it. The character models range anywhere from atrocious to mildly acceptable if they would wear a helmet. which is fortunate because the base of the tiefling horns look like fleshy socks. The hair has a sticky looking design, similar to Divinity Original Sin 2, and that came out 3 years earlier. The best models by far are the Dragonborn. Cool snouts, nice scale textures, and the Warlock armor is badass. It's too bad that both the race and the class are DLC only. Now, before I go too far with the criticism, I need to reiterate this is their first game, and I shouldn't be too harsh. But it's the ugly bits like this that can really turn a player off. I am the person who will spend 4 hours in a character creator to make my avatar exactly how I want, and the fact that I don't want to do that is a clear indicator that it's not very good. Once you have 4 characters, pick your campaign. There's the original Crown of the Magister campaign and a few DLCs, but for this video, I'm only covering the original. There are difficulty modes ranging from story mode or cataclysm mode if the idea of playing casually gives you indigestion. I'll be going with scavenger mode, which is equivalent to hard mode. So confession time. I have absolutely zero tabletop experience, and my only experience with 5th edition is Baldur's Gate 3, which contains a boatload of changes to the traditional system that favor player power. Solasta is far more faithful to the original game, which is more challenging, but it comes with a few detriments. Combat is based on the D&D 5e system, which is complicated, but I'll do my best to make it simple. If you know all this, I'll drop a timestamp so you can skip this if you want. This is a 20-sided die, aka a D20. When you make any action, you roll this dice. That roll is then checked against your target. If it's an attack, you check the roll against your opponent's armor class, or AC, which is based on their class, stats, and armor. If it's a skill check or certain spells, you check against the difficulty class, or DC. So let's look at 2 very simple examples. Number 1, I make an attack and roll a 15. If my opponent's armor class is 16, my attack does no damage. Second example, I attempt to disarm a trap and roll a 12. The DC of the trap is 10, therefore I succeed and disarm the trap with no issue. Everything in the game is broken up into different sizes of dice, and there are multiple ways to give you bonuses and advantages to your actions. However, rolling a 1 on anything is called a critical failure, meaning that it will always fail, whilst rolling a 20 is a critical success, meaning that you will always succeed. In the case of roleplay, it doesn't mean that whatever you try to make happen will work, it simply means that you'll get the best possible outcome for that situation. Rolling a 20 on an attack results in a critical hit, which doubles the amount of dice used in that attack, which can lead to some insane damage numbers. Attacks that deal damage in an AoE are indicated by a blue shape formed based on whatever spell or ability you're using. Enemies or allies affected by it will also be highlighted blue, so you're never confused about when you'll be hitting your own teammates. Better equipment gives you better dice and stats, but all unique armors must be identified before their special bonuses can be used by the player. This means you need either a party member capable of using the identify spell, or be ready to fork over money to a shop so they can do it for you. In addition to having the identify spell, the user must also have a pearl or jewel item of at least 100 gold in value in their inventory. The pearl doesn't get used when you cast the spell. You just have to hold it in your inventory, so what's the purpose of the pearl? It literally just exists so you can use identify, and I know you can remove this requirement in the settings, but why is it even here to begin with? Please explain to me why we can shoot literal lightning, see invisibility, and in total darkness, but to identify what a magical item does, we need a random bauble. And to add another pointless thing, identifying an item causes a loading screen that tells me the party had to wait 10 minutes to identify the item. It will do this for every item you identify, and it's annoying. And if that's not bad enough, I identified this unknown +1 crossbow in my inventory and find that it is indeed a +1 crossbow. I gained nothing from identifying it. It doesn't add anything to the game, and it just slows everything down. Once I realized you could toggle the whole identify system off, I did, because gameplay wise, there was nothing interesting about it. It's just a meaningless chore. Speaking of chores, crafting. Crafting requires special crafting items / kits, which most of your characters will have. But there's nothing in the game guiding me to the shop where I can find the kits I don't have. Either start the players with none and show them where to find it, or just hand us all of them. Better yet, remove the item, because crafting is done by accessing the crafting menu, not the specific kit. In the crafting menu, select the item you have both the recipe and materials for. Both of these can be found throughout the world. Some recipes require DLC-only materials, and nothing tells you this. Crafting weapons need special primed weapons, which can't be made, only found or bought. Once you start crafting an item, skill checks are made every in-game hour. The DC and number of checks depends on what you're making. Failing a check doesn't eat resources, you keep making the checks until you eventually succeed. Canceling the creation of an item before it's complete, however, does, meaning if you're unlucky, you'll be stuck crafting the same items for multiple in-game long rests. You can completely cheese this by resting continuously, but at that point it breaks the flow of the game completely. These are both examples of systems drawn from base D&D guidelines, and I'm sure there are many fans who appreciate them trying to keep things close to the original game, but in a video game setting, if they don't enhance anything, they should either be modified to fit or cut. Putting a new weapon or armor piece to cook while you go on your adventure is nice and fits well, especially when traveling and after a trip you get to try out your new gear. But it's inevitably let down by the simple fact that time gating doesn't work with a system that allows infinite rests, therefore making the passage of time meaningless. Systems should make gameplay more engaging, not just tedious for the sake of being tedious. However, one incredibly well done system is the bestiary. Examine enemies by holding Alt. When fighting an enemy for the first time, the details appear locked, but after combat, you roll a survival skill check. Pass, you add information about your targets to the bestiary, so the next time you face them, you have access to more information during the fight. The concept of becoming more effective at fighting a target from experience is a really neat touch to a skill that is otherwise underutilized. You can turn this off in the options, but I never felt the desire to because it made gameplay that much more engaging and rewarding. There are several moments of give and take with regards to the creativity and satisfaction of experiences within the gameplay loop. Do your mission, return to base, and prepare for the next adventure with better equipment and abilities. I'll discuss the heights and pitfalls of which as we discuss my playthrough, but as I do, please remember, I'm judging it as a complete product because that is how it will be sold to players. There are no more updates or additional content being made, so what you see is what you get. So here we are, Act 1. The game starts and we're met with the intro movie.
Before the cataclysm, there were no gods on Solasta. No humans either. Then, the rift opened. Some say it was a magical accident, or the work of an evil god. No one knows for sure. The cataclysm destroyed the old High Elf Empire. Manicalan, they called it, and twisted the land beyond recognition. Now, only the brave and the foolish go there, in search of ancient treasures. But something is happening deep in those Badlands. Whatever it is, it can't be good.
Note for the audience, if the authors unironically write, whatever is happening in the Badlands can't be good, don't get your expectations too high. The four characters meet up in a bar telling stories about how we got there. I didn't know about this, but apparently the party meets up in a bar is a big D&D campaign trope. My general sentiment towards which can be summed up with, meh. I don't really care what you do as long as it fits the story and the characters without being overly heavy-handed. This is used as the game's tutorial, and it is jarring, to say the least, so let's talk about this. The first flashback teaches basic movement and environmental interactions by having us escape from a prison. At the end of this segment, it has us push a wall down onto our captors, which instantly deletes them from reality. Now, will I ever have a chance to do this in the main game? Kind of. The positioning of enemies is usually such that interactable objects that have the potential to do damage either won't hit them or won't be as effective as just attacking them, which leaves us with very few moments where environmental manipulation plays any real role in combat or setup for encounters. Next, someone will say how they won their way here with blood and pain, followed by the combat tutorial, which ends with us dashing away, so whoever says this is a liar. The tutorial description is also wrong. Hovering over the dash tiles don't actually turn them yellow like they're supposed to. I also kill the wolves, which makes dashing completely pointless. Move over to this side of the bridge and I'm told to interact with this rock, but a bug prevents me from doing so, soft locking my entire game. In the tutorial, I have to go back to an earlier save and do it all again. Then we learn about stealth. Activate cautious mode to sneak around without alerting enemies. If you get close to the enemies in the tutorial, it's an instant game over. They can hear you as indicated by the noise circle around your character, but it says nothing about how enemies can see you and gives no indication whatsoever of whether an enemy can see you outside of combat until you've already been spotted. Enemies have limited visual range, which will let you maintain stealth, but how can you be stealthy if you don't know what they can see? There's a link to the D&D rule system Solasta uses, but it wouldn't have hurt to just put it in the game. After we sneak past and make it to camp, we're told to take a long rest. There's a second stealth tutorial teaching us about lockpicking and traps, followed by a brief pop-up about critical characters. If these temporary companions die, it's game over. But don't worry, because the enemies will never prioritize going for them. Aside from missing multiple elements of the game's core mechanics, the cutaways to 4 completely different, completely isolated instances is remarkably jarring. It moves the player far away from the initial narrative without connecting to anything else in the story. It sort of serves to give the individual characters their own backstory, but this is pointless because, number one, every character can be a custom character. Giving them a random backstory negates the roleplay side of the game. And number two, nothing in this segment will ever matter again. A better use of this time could have been sending the party on an initial mission where they need to engage with all of the aforementioned mechanics. Another odd thing this sets a precedent for are instances where you only have to control one character, but again, this never happens in the game. There is never an instance in the original campaign where you have to split the party and won't have control over all 4 of your main party members. After finishing our schizo episodes, this drunk mentions something about Sorax, which will matter later. Meet Karen, who is our exposition man. He invites us to the council hall to be deputized, and from here we learn about moving the party and map controls. Locations are instanced and connected by an overworld map, similar to games like Golden Sun or Chrono Trigger. Each instance has its own map, which remains blacked out until the players explored it, like Baldur's Gate 1 and 2. Within each location, there are fast travel points. Until then, you have to walk via exiting the instance and setting up a travel plan via the travel menu. Determining how you travel, quickly, normally, or cautiously, determines how easily you'll be able to deal with random encounters. For some reason, the only time you can access this menu is in the overworld map. As you travel, you'll long rest at the end of every day. This restores all of your abilities, and casters get the chance to prepare the spells they want to use. Each long rest uses food rations, and if you run out, then you will only be able to complete a partial rest, and you won't get all of your abilities back. Rations are neat in concept, but take up way too much space in the backpack because they only stack to 4, and wind up weighing around 90% of my total carry capacity. This is made worse by whenever you randomly find rations as you travel if you don't need them, because if you enter combat while over capacity, you will be at a disadvantage. There's also some nice flavor text that comes through the dialogue box, which is a nice touch. Killing a deer for rations, practicing an instrument, tending our equipment. It goes a long way to immerse us in the journey. Overworld movement is confined to a 3-dimensional grid. There are special items and spells which let you climb walls, otherwise vertical traversal is confined to ladders and limited climbing based on the character's athleticism and strength scores. You don't have precise controls over every movement your character takes, but if you click for them to move somewhere, they will take whatever actions necessary to reach that location. You can also click on any points in the map and your characters will move there, which is nice. To leave an area, you can either click the exit point or place your whole party into this little blue box. Every member has to be inside because
you must gather your party before venturing forth.
What isn't nice is the compass. If you look at the compass and look at the grid, you'll see that the cardinal directions do not line up with the movement, but it's not actually consistent in every area. Some areas have the compass orthogonal to the movement grid. Others have it in line with the grid, and there is no consistency at all. After a quick ceremony and very bad British jokes, Corin tells us we're being hired to look at the recent disappearance of several soldiers, including the captain of Caer Lim, an outpost on the border of the country. Before we leave, we are prompted to stay at the inn and we get a chance to level up. The level up screen is very nicely laid out and does a good job of highlighting all the changes, in addition to giving you a nice preview of what you can gain at higher levels. The first travel encounter is a scripted run-in with a pack of bandits. Solasta features random encounters similar to Baldur's Gate 1 anytime the player is traveling in the overworld. Depending on your travel settings and luck, you may ambush the target, giving you a surprise round, or vice versa. The difficulty of the enemies you encounter is zone-based, but sometimes terribly balanced. In my second playthrough, my fresh level 2 party ran into a group of evil mages that seemed way above the normal level. Level differences in D&D can be overcome with enough skill, but once players reach around level 5, the power gap widens significantly. It also teaches us about ready attacks, which is a feature that's probably important, but I won't use it for the entire game. Arrive at Caer Lim, and we're suddenly assaulted by goblins, because you always start D&D games with goblins. More combat tutorial pop-ups, this time inventory and overworld cover. This is a lot of pop-ups to explain the system. I get that D&D combat can be complicated, so they probably thought it would be best to space out the tutorials among several encounters as opposed to forcing it into one large sit-through, and I can appreciate that. However, these later bits telling a player about a mechanic they aren't made to interact with don't facilitate learning. Kill the goblins, go to the Caer, and get this cutscene right before an ambush by flying enemies.
There's definitely been fighting here.
Why did we take this job again? Oh yeah, these lovely council badges. This is no time for jokes.
Right. Whoever did this could still be around, and we don't want them hearing us.
We should look for survivors. 50 people can't just vanish.
Did you see that?
Someone's hiding inside the tower.
It's a trap. The goblins killed everyone, and now it's our turn.
Or they're the survivors, and they're being cautious.
Flying enemies are the worst type of enemy in the game. Normally when an enemy moves out of melee range, you get a free hit called an opportunity attack, and for some reason, this doesn't always happen when they fly away. and they can stay out of reach for the entire fight. So I hope you either brought a ranged weapon or a caster to throw at the flying enemies. Another pop-up for short rests. You have access to short rests in between every long rest, which give the party a moment to heal and restore some abilities. Each character has a number of healing dice that can be rolled to recover health based on their class, constitution, and level. You can short rest as much as you want, but you can only heal until those dice get used up. Approach the door, and here's a nice roleplay touch. One of my characters has the spy background, so we get a special insight to let us in with a passphrase. If you have a character with a mercenary background, you call out to a different person instead. So this is cool. My personal choice to create a character with this trait has unlocked new information and opened up a path of less resistance. The Sorax kidnap the captain, and we get the chance to make a decision on who to claim as responsible for the debacle. Suddenly we're assaulted by Sorax, and whoever you decide to accuse of being responsible dies. Rip, guy whose name I don't remember. By the way, there's no animation of him entering the barracks. The Sorax just sort of shows up and takes a swing at whoever the victim is. Sorax are fleshy lizard monsters with the power to change their appearance to match others, so they're doppelgangers. Why is it always doppelgangers? Continue through the tunnels, fight some more baddies. Did I mention we get interrupted by pop-ups a lot? So I went back and counted every single pop-up that has come into the game so far. There have been exactly 75 pop-up windows, multiple of which have been reused since the intro to the game. Pop-ups are by no means bad, but the frequency and volume of their use is. The tutorial boxes are also inconsistent. If you click next or previous, that will move you back and forth between them, but it doesn't actually close them. The only tutorial box option that will close them out is understood. Otherwise, you have to escape out of the tutorial box. Anyway, stalactites, you can bring them down in order to damage enemies beneath. Unless they are directly beneath them, don't waste your time. The damage is so pitiful, you're better off spending it attacking. Finally make it out and report back to Corrin and the council. Quick note on the plot. I don't think any of the ideas are bad by any measure. A country is facing a crisis via an unprecedented invasion by shapeshifters. This is the plot of at least 2 other D&D games, but I digress. What I find really stupid is that in a world with dragon people, gods, and magic, people really believe that doppelganger lizards can't possibly be real, so they want me to bring back the head of a Sorax as proof.
Is this a joke?
The Sor-Akath are no laughing matter, Lord Fasek.
Oh, you know what I mean.
What do you mean, my lord?
How many times has the council heard tales of these so-called Sorax?
At least 20, I'd say.
More. 23.
Yes, more each year. It's becoming a fad.
And I don't care that Dragonborn are a DLC object. None of the game's dialogue was edited in to accommodate content introduced with later DLCs. But it's still ridiculous that no one believes this could be real. On top of that, there's another oversight that completely destroys the game's immersion. At this point, you have access to the game's side quest board. This is never called out, and you will only ever find it if you happen to click on it as you're passing by. You can take the secondary quest, Sorak Relic, which specifically tells us Sorakath have attacked an outpost and they are real. So, the council doesn't believe in Sorax, but there is a whole quest telling us about a documented attack, and we need to know where they are. You can only pick up one quest at a time, but the game lets you highlight as many as you want before confirming, which is stupid. If you allow me to select all of them, just let me pick up all of them. The markers tend to be pretty inconsistent, like this one I pick up in the city. They don't always tell you where you're actually supposed to go. The quests themselves usually take a single step to resolve and never tie back into the main plot, so they wind up feeling mainly like busy work. Fun fact, if the quest marker appears in the same place as the fast travel marker, it will take priority over the fast travel point. I like that they gave the older areas relevance after passing through them during the main quest, but there's never any depth. Go to the place, click the area once, fight a mob, and then go back to the board. There are 2 notable exceptions though. The first of which is this quest where we have to pacify a restless spirit. We have to clear out this graveyard before convincing, either by violence or by channeling a reference to the 1973 movie The Exorcist.
Behold the power of a rune, apostate.
It won't work, you fool!
The other is the quote, legendary quest, which sees you team up with Arwen Merton to avenge his old crew. Solve a puzzle, either using the clues in this relic and following the sigils on the wall, then kill this very strong boss, which is immune to both cold and fire damage. But the final boss of this quest doesn't even have legendary actions, and Arwen doesn't have much to say at the end. There's no character revelations or a big emotional catharsis. The whole experience for something titled legendary feels flat. Oh well, at least the rewards are pretty useful. We're off to investigate a tower where the Sorax may live. Before that, stop by Scavenger HQ and we get more pop-ups that I'm not going to bother counting anymore. After some time, they will pick up any items that I don't and let us keep or insta-sell them. Pull up to the tower and there's a short cutscene and these cultists. RPG test. Can we talk to them? No, it's combat on site. Apparently they're all marked with the letter A and this will never be important to the plot. Run into this man who we interrogate on site, but the sheer strain of being persuaded by my charisma gives him an aneurysm and he dies. RIP, random stranger. We then get introduced to a simple puzzle. Push the rock into the mana flow and it settles into place, allowing you to cross. So I start to wonder what kind of interesting things they'll do or if there's any way to mess these puzzles up, but no. You can't fail and the solution is always push it into place, then walk over it. You can also interact with statues and roll history to figure out who they were, plus a little experience. This statue says we can dig her up, so maybe there's a secret crypt. No, just more statues. Find the Sorak nest and kill them all. There's an odd crown on this magical looking dial. Selecting it prompts everyone to pick up the crown and whoever does will attune to it and be stuck with it until the end of the game.
Yes, I understand.
Who are you talking to? Wait, what are you doing? Are you crazy? Why did you put it on?
Head back and we get a camp cutscene where we discover the crown causes schizophrenia before reporting back to the council. We throw them the head and the crown before devolving into my best low-budget Gollum impression before passing out. And thus begins one of the game's worst pacing problems. There is a lot of unnecessary back and forth between the same areas. We are interrupted by cutscenes here, not once, not twice, but 5 separate times after the council cutscene to introduce us to the faction system. Afterwards, it places us back at the council for another cutscene before finally allowing us to continue on our journey. So let's go over the faction system. While exploring, you may find relics that different factions will exchange for reputation. Higher reputation gives access to more items and larger discounts broken into 5 different tiers, with all items unlocked once you reach the Living Legend tier. They give the best rewards, but the total reputation you can gain is limited, making it impossible to max out all factions in a single playthrough. They have the best loot in the game, and all of it costs more than an IMAX movie plus snacks. Fun fact, if you talk with the rep from the Tower of Knowledge, tell her you just wanted to see her smiling face, and she will award you with 5 extra reputation. That is a lovely roleplay touch. Wake up and confirm the crown has been attuned to us. What's that mean? Don't know, but apparently I'm supposed to because it's D&D, so here's a crash course. Attunement. Players have a maximum of 3 magical items they're allowed to wear and attune at any one time. This will be highlighted in red text above any item where attunement is required. You can wear the items at any time, but the magical effects will only be available if they are attuned. Items can be attuned during short rests. Beric Sunblaze from the Council tells us more about his role in the entire history of Sorax and how everyone came into the world of Solasta through a gigantic rift, which we heard about in the intro. You can also take this specific dialogue, which grants us bestiary entries and updates to the logs on several Sorax enemies, once again combining narrative and gameplay mechanics and thus reinforcing that talking to characters is valuable to the player. Once we make it back to the council chamber, a counselor places a gem into the crown, which throws us into a vision of the past where we're an ultra-powerful paladin facing down hordes of Sorax at the very rift Beric mentioned. Ultimately, we're overwhelmed by the sheer number of enemies and return to the present. The gem the counselor used was one of 7 that belonged to the crown, and our mission is to find the remaining gemstones before the Sorax. We get interrupted one last time to be told about major gates and where to go. Travel to the swamp area, and I'll give it to the team. The environments are very nice and atmospheric with easily digestible colors. None of the muted nonsense from lazier developers. Oh, but the Grey. Try to talk, but he has terrible manners. Quick note on dialogue checks. You can only pick one dialogue choice when you have to pass a check. Insight, which is reliant on wisdom, helps you to see your likelihood to succeed and always rolls off your highest wisdom stat character. Unfortunately, I failed the check and now I have to kill him. Why? Don't know. He's also immune to melee damage, so am I fighting Gandalf? Let's see, he's wearing gray robes but doesn't use any magic. Yeah, he's Gandalf. Sorry about that. This next sequence reveals a problem that will plague me the rest of my main playthrough. He had something to tell me, but now he's dead, and there's no speak with dead or corpse to use it on. In a traditional CRPG, in case someone murder hobos their way through the game, developers leave hints or have extra NPCs to reveal the plot. This is most of Elminster's role in the original Baldur's Gate, and most of the NPCs repeat important story beats in every questline, so it's very difficult for the players to miss. This is referred to as a failsafe, and Solasta has almost none. I go to pick the lock on his door, which can only be attempted once by default, only to immediately realize that this is irrelevant because you can just go through the window anyway. After searching his hut for clues, I don't find anything. You also can't loot him for a key, which implies that this isn't his house. Why is he here? Find this ghost and we get the option to intimidate him. He's dead. What the hell is the point of an intimidate option? I step into the mausoleum where we get a bunch of prompts telling us that there's probably treasure. Of course there may be treasure here. That's why we're here. Get dumped into a ghoul ambush, so I kill them, move on, and run straight into the castle after going down into a crypt. Turns out this tunnel going into an underground crypt is not a tunnel going into an underground crypt. It's a passage to the center courtyard. Start a fight and someone dies. The adventure can't continue with a dead party member, and if you don't have any methods to revive them, it's game over. Afterwards, a skeleton named Adam the 12th appears and promptly kicks us out, uttering an actual funny line.
Others don't know, but our mission has been ordered by the Emperor himself. Our orders are to meet with your master and ask him certain questions. Nothing more than that.
I may be dead, but I'm not stupid. The Empire fell 1,000 years ago. There is no Emperor. Take your lies and get out!
But I also have absolutely zero idea what the hell is actually happening here besides necromancy. Try again, and the stairs actually take us back outside. Okay, I get it now. So the zones are always cut off by the blue squares, meaning that within any area, if you interact with a travel point like stairs, it will simply take you to a different point on the same map. To go downstairs, we must proceed to the blue highlighted area. Kill our way through the mausoleum, find a necromancer, and I can't ignore the fact that she has the exact same face as other characters we've already met. Fail the roll to convince her to take us to her boss, who we apparently know about for absolutely no reason, and we get thrown into a fight. This is terrible for two reasons. Number one, we are immediately put into another fight with zero chance to rest. Number two, all of the enemies we just killed come back to life in this fight. If the enemies we encounter are fully scripted, that's fine, but screwing over your players by making them waste resources before a big encounter is not. And then we get a nice touch. This room has light objects and destructible environments that let light inside and weaken the monsters in the room. I swear it is a step forward and 2 steps back this entire game. New cutscene.
We ask a simple boon, an audience with Master Maldracht, and safe passage out of the castle. We believe your master knows about a powerful ancient artifact. We need his knowledge.
Let me think. Kill them! Kill them all!
And okay, we get some new information, but who the hell is Mardrach? Going off dialogue choices alone, she's a vampire, but what the hell is the context of this whole encounter? This is our first legendary enemy, which means she gets 3 legendary actions per turn. Legendary actions allow them to either use moves during my turn or automatically succeed the save against any ability used against her. This means that my strategy of stunning my enemies until I can bash them to death won't work, making this fight ridiculously tough. That said, she has a major weakness: light hypersensitivity. So I set a light source in my hands and discover another gameplay quirk. Putting on a light source swaps your offhand item. If you're a caster holding a staff, you can't cast spells because you need a free hand, and the game does not go out of its way to explain this aspect of combat. It's in the spell descriptions, but if you're not familiar with the rules, this can be confusing. Alright, we found 3 mini-bosses: a skeleton, a necromancer, and a vampire. Pop quiz: who is their master and why are we fighting them? Dunno? Me neither. But the gem is here and the plot demands we kill everything in our path to get it. Find a journal and it's puzzle time. It's simple, but a nice change of pace. Step on the symbols to open this gate, which lets us push this and open a shortcut into the main room. Picking the wrong slab doesn't reset the puzzle, but teleports you so you can find secret spots. Cool. Find a long rest spot, but in order for the party to take a long rest,
you must gather your party before venturing forth.
Finally find Master Mardracht, and his voice is,
Who are you? How did you get in here?
Dry. I go for a deception attempt, but my character's line doesn't seem particularly deceptive. Likely because of all the context I've missed.
You're right to fear us, and those who sent us. We are powerful, but you don't have to die. The gods have commanded us to kill you.
I knew it.
But we don't need to do that, if you'll help us.
Sir, your line was, "We're here to save Solasta." Unfortunately, I have all the charm of a ball of lint, so this triggers a fight with him and his minions, but for some reason, he doesn't get a legendary action, despite supposedly being the master of the vampire from earlier. Kill him, take the gem, and try out our Gollum impression one more time. Each new gem upgrades the Imperial Crown. Now, We can raise dead 3 times per day, freeing us up from the requirement to keep scrolls of Revivify. Raiding the place after he's dead rewards me with a bag of holding, so now I will never have to throw away food supplies again. Make my way out, walk up to the main door, and get a new cutscene that will never be relevant, because how this was meant to be played out was, first, clear the enemies in the courtyard, second, enter the mausoleum and confront the master. But because I skipped the courtyard initially, this cutscene makes this look like a totally separate area. Go back to the council, who immediately sends us out again to these beautiful ruins above a gorgeously rendered waterfall. But as pretty as it is, there's no mechanical difference to being on water. More unnecessary and annoying hints before finally reaching the temple and this puzzle that only works at night. Now, it's cool there's an option to use the bench to advance the time to night, but we already have a mechanic to pass time. You didn't need to add this. Now, if you long rest, no matter what time of day it is, you will start over in the morning. But if you short rest, you only pass an hour, and you can short rest until night in order to solve the puzzle. So that's a nice bit of consistency, at least. An improvement to the system could be to let us control the amount of time we choose to rest for. I knock this beam down, and it falls in the direction opposite that I hit it, which doesn't make any sense. Solve the puzzle and find a woman named Cathala, who shall henceforth be known as Kitty, sleeping inside, and if your character speaks Elvish, which, if you have an elf, which 99% of you are likely to have, you can communicate. She drops a bit of lore on the title of the game, informing us that we hold the crown of the Magister on our head before we head off to the Vale of Coperan. There's a cutscene, some more awkward dialogue.
Yes, this is the place.
What do you mean?
But it's impossible.
How do you feel?
I propose we set up camp and get some rest.
I don't think that's a good idea.
I must find the Master.
Shouldn't we go to Coperan?
I say we go.
Yes.
And then we get assaulted by orcs. Kill them all, and then this chest down at the bottom gives us an awesome piece of armor. This is what I mean by this game has the spirit of D&D. We leveled up, and the party is way stronger, but they don't have the gear to match, so what do? You put in an event to level up their gear and match their progression. Of all the game's problems, the pacing of upgrades hasn't been one of them, and a bit of dialogue in this dungeon actually isn't bad.
I must find the Master.
Are you okay?
Yes.
We just want to help.
He's crazy.
That's 2 steps forward, and now 2 steps back. Look, this event says to protect the caravan, but the enemies don't target the caravan, they target you. Then the music loop randomly restarts. I'm not doing anything to manipulate what's happening, it's just a looping bug. Arrive at the Vale, tell them about the caravan, and the story flow at this point is pretty nice. The commander wants us to investigate the people in town because the details about Rold aren't adding up and the people are acting sus. And to make things worse, I discover that Kitty is racist.
Is this Baron really a dwarf? Are there dwarf? I can't call a dwarf my lord. Little town.
That's 1 step back. We walk around and overhear a number of short conversations that swap to a cutscene every single time. These give you clues which can be referenced in the journal, and the clues are numbered, but it's the order assigned in the journal, not the number in which you may hear them. Listen to them all, and the prime suspect is, surprise, not really, the Baron. Of course, it's the man in charge. I also discovered this funny little bit of jank. Teleporting around, I can get past these guards, but there's no way inside the mines because it's not an actual dungeon, but the space above these walls are rendered. I can teleport up, but I'm completely stuck. There are no tiles that I can move to from here. Meet with the Baron, and there's an odd visual issue here in Kitty's face. He starts getting grinchy, and when we head into the dungeon, he reveals that he was a doppelganger the whole time. I like the creepy purple glow, but even without it, this isn't much of a plot twist. Kill them and free the real Baron. There's also a callback to the previous Moonlight puzzle, which is nice to see that they didn't just make it a one-off mechanic. Off to the next gem, and there are a lot of encounters here, which teaches me one unfortunate design choice. Going through a tunnel during combat uses up all of your base movement speed. Would have been nice to get a warning. Head inside to a place full of ghost servants, and this is a bit I love. The ultimate RPG measure is just how reactive the world is to the player and recognizing that the choices they make are meaningful by giving them consequences. I teleport inside this area, which is very clearly off limits, and the ghost guards turn aggressive. That is a fantastic touch. Go into the main area and meet Kitty's master, which is actually a dragon, and the whole party mirrors my feelings exactly.
We're gonna die here.
Then Razan appears and fights us while the master is unable to assist us. Who is Razan? Don't worry about it. He's evil and you should kill him. When we win, he disappears and Adrastea, the master of abjuration, who shall henceforth be known as Adrian, reveals that the spirit of the crown is named Casenax, and if you forget that, it's fine because it will never matter. Adrian apologizes for making Kitty racist. Oh yeah, he can make artificial life. You can forget that too. It never matters. He gives us the gem and says we will meet again soon, but asks us to finish off Razan for good before we go. So I do, which brings up another issue. This note tells us that we should try to bait Razan outside the coffin of his dead lover. But when you show up to do that, it immediately throws you into an instance combat situation. No interaction, no anything. Other times you will need to select an object in the overworld to activate these instances, and there is absolutely no consistency between any of these situations. There's also this bug that causes Razan to always appear as if he's in Adrian's chamber after the fight when looking at the map. If I had to guess, I'd say that this is probably a data remnant from the cutscene that plays right before the battle. When cutscenes happen within a game's engine as opposed to pre-shot cinematics, they are usually done in an instance inaccessible to the player. You may have also seen videos of players finding an Elden Ring boss's second phase in some sort of obscure area you would never normally be able to enter. It seems like the area used to render that cutscene is swapped with the area we use for the boss battle after we exit through the doors. Back to the council, where they read a bunch of titles that are supposed to sound impressive but will never matter. They explain that the crown has the power to open and close the rift which allowed Sorax into our world. But when I ask any of them for help, they tell me to pound sand.
May we be so bold as to ask for your material support? Weapons, armor, or spells, for instance?
Don't overestimate yourselves, deputies.
I also discover another inconsistency. Using the major gate in Caer Kiflin is different from all the others. Usually, you click on the gate and you get the choice of destinations. In the main hub, the gate is accessed by talking to these guards, and there is no hint anywhere on the map. I spent the entire game not knowing that this was how you used the gate in Caer Kiflin. To the volcano. Find this lone orc woman who we can talk to because we speak Orcish. Her clan was killed by a shaman named Arak using the power of fire, so that's our gem. He also captured Brock, who she wants to free in order to convince the other orc clans to help us. And for the first time, the game gives us 3 explicit pathways to solve our problem. I start sneaking around, but the lack of line of sight indicator means this is a bust. Talk to Arbel and convince him to let us inside to free Brock and speak to the 3 chieftains. One will follow us if we can win a 1v1 with their chief, which is easy with the paladin. Another wants an ancient relic you acquire by killing this giant spider. Fun fact, you can choose to keep the axe, but it's weaker than the other weapons you could just make. The last chief wants a key to the sunken city, so we look around, take the key from this ghost, step outside, and the last tribe were Sorax in disguise. Once all the remaining tribes are united, we open the door to face Arak, and just like everyone else in the game, he's racist.
You walk with Nyarks. Shame on you.
Uh-oh.
Story problem here. The whole point of running around and doing those errands for the different clans was to get them on our side, but none of them help us in the final battle, which makes the whole thing feel kind of pointless. Escape the volcano, and the rendering of this area is clearly incomplete. Look, the lighting effects and textures in this one spot are completely different than every other area of the game, and it is hard not to notice. There's also no way to go back into the orc area once you've finished because the mountain collapses, killing all of them. What the hell was the point of that whole ordeal? After the volcano, we venture into the lava forest where the game introduces these obvious traps that you can either blast from a distance or attempt to disarm. But this next encounter is where the balance of the game breaks into pieces. We are surrounded on all sides by these spiders that can attack 3 times each, have massive HP pools, and are untouchable by melee characters that don't have the power to climb trees. Combine this and you have a recipe for an unreasonably difficult encounter that completely breaks the difficulty curve we've been on. None of these individual abilities on their own are a great threat, but combined into several high-level enemies, and it is awful to get through. But then this encounter is followed by a genuinely really cool and much more reasonable encounter where these lava spiders ambush us by crawling out of the lava, which is really cool. But again, why is it so inconsistent? Grab the crown gem sitting in this totally random shack that is absolutely not booby-trapped and get teleported into a dungeon. Then I talk to this cultist and apparently we've already captured him.
Friend, it's time for a little chat.
I'll give you nothing. Sortar will protect me from your torture.
Did they forget to put a part of a cutscene here and they immediately skipped over to him being our prisoner? This is followed by a stupid argument of whether to kill him or not, but he saves us the trouble and does it himself. Rip Random Stranger. The challenge in this area is set up as a wave minigame. Touching the pillar activates the rounds, and once you finish, there's an extra encounter you can take on to unlock a secret chest, which is a nice touch of design. It's nice they reward the player for taking on an optional challenge, and they did it using the mechanic they introduced within this area, just like the Moonlight puzzles from earlier. What's unfortunate though is that these challenges seem to just pull random enemies from the roster we've seen throughout the game so far. They've kept the enemies in each area thematically consistent, but that all gets thrown away in favor of what feels much more video gamey. Flip 2 switches, head through the door, and there's a chest which is totally not a trap. So I grab it and oh wow, a third trap in the same area. What a surprise. A green dragon appears and calls us a thief, and I'm a professional, so shoot him in the chest and he dies in a single hit, dropping the gem. Pick up the gem and it's a fourth trap. Okay, not gonna lie, that one actually caught me by surprise. We're thrown into this trippy little pocket dimension, so my party rolls an insight check to get a grasp of where we are. I roll a nat 20 and get a fantastic bit of information that tells us what's going on.
How fascinating! A new wonder to behold. Only one way to find out. Come on.
Thank you for that absolutely astounding revelation. We make our way inside, and these servants constantly call out to us to help free them. But if you walk by, then the quest immediately fails. If you listen and free him, then nothing happens. All the spirits in this place are illusions, likely created by the gem. Finally meet the master, and he's so crazy, he starts arguing politics.
We were born to rule, not to grovel. And we had sworn to protect our people.
You mean your slaves?
Fool! Imperial rule brought order where there was only chaos.
But your empire was destroyed. Who knows how many elves were killed?
Ah, because you believe that Manicalan was an elven empire.
But I don't know what he's talking about, so the fight starts. 4 statues around the room are shielding him, but you can use your item action to shut them down. Otherwise, everyone takes lightning damage at the start of the turn. Once the barrier's down, he reverts to his dragon form. And although it's a much more straightforward fight, he is a lot tougher. Once he's dead, he drops the final gem. We then get a prompt to head to the Manicalan ruins, but once we arrive, the gem has already been taken. This is where we receive the point of no return warning, so I finish up all the remaining side quests and head to the council, who is very keen on seeing the crown taken back. Now, we've seen the blowback that happens when they first tried to take the crown at the start of the game, but this time they take it and there is literally no consequence other than our characters getting upset. It would have been interesting if they put a notable debuff on our character or something to represent this actually being a problem. The princess then offers to let us stay at the palace for the night, but if you talk to Headland, he will warn you against staying there. If you ignore this warning, you will awake in the middle of the night surrounded by Sorax and have to fight your way out. Return to the council and they'll hand you 10k gold for the trouble with the crown, which is nice and yet still not enough to afford the most expensive items in the shop. Why are you showing items that no player will ever be able to reasonably afford? I get that they're in-game items, but making them unobtainable is annoying. We then get some extra dialogue from Arwen, which I think is meant to sound mysterious, but he just sounds like a conspiracy theorist.
Something's not right.
You think we need you to tell us?
I mean something's up. Something big.
Unfortunately, though, he's actually right. They send us off to investigate the nearby town of Earcorn, which turns out to be an ambush. Returning to Caer Kiflin sees the entire town occupied by the army. A group of delegates from the Tower of Knowledge are poisoned and a council member is missing. We head to his mansion, which I have no clue how to find because for some reason there is no quest marker. It's in this random corner which you would never have any reason to go down. The house is filled with rotting corpses and a monument to the Sorax. We were being manipulated the entire time to find the remaining gems so that they could steal the crown and open the portal. This plot twist, while remarkably predictable, is at the very least well placed within the story. Returning to our home, which has up to this point been a place of safety and refuge, and finding that it's become hostile is one of my favorite motifs in the hero's journey. Head to Barracks Sunblaze to investigate the dead delegates, but the dead bodies were Sorax in disguise. Rush to the crown, but it's too late. They're already here, and it turns out the princess is actually a dragon. And this cutscene is a little janky.
Look! The princess?
Come on, old lady. Time to show off.
One day, Arwen Merton.
She appears out of nowhere and there's no transformation scene. Her model is just replaced outside of the camera's view. Also, Merton finally grew a personality when it was too late to matter. The princess stops time to give us a chance to rest before going to the final fight. Okay, hang on. Why couldn't she do that and prevent them from stealing the crown in the first place? In the immortal words of Deadpool, that just sounds like lazy writing. We also get a bunch of gear, which is useless because all of it is way worse than what I already have. Another bit of narrative dissonance here. We're told we can't teleport due to the mana in the air, but Misty Step works absolutely fine. The final battle of the game takes place at the reopened rift. It's a tough fight with 2 legendary monsters, 3 abominations, and a caster. But thankfully, one of the dragons from earlier appears and helps me by immediately burning 2 of my party members to death. So now I have to play around the enemy and my ally dragon AI. After clearing them out, the rift opens up further and the spirit of the Magister returns. You have to last for 5 more turns for him to chant the spell and close the rift. Oh, and the gold dragon from earlier just straight up dies. No explanation, no reason, just falls over. And then in the next scene, you see him standing up. I don't get it. Either way, this makes the fight much easier because you no longer have to play around him killing your allies. Then the game ends and the final cutscene plays. And I miss it because if you click on anything during the cutscene, the game will just outright skip it. Right, let's try that again.
Was done. Never again would so many gods unite their forces to create a passage through the worlds. Solasta would remain on Tiamat until the end of times. But his children of darkness had set foot on Solasta and planted the seeds of evil. Deeper than anyone could have imagined.
So, Solasta, Crown of the Magister. Is it the worst RPG ever? The base game is definitely a rough draft of a video game. The character classes and subclasses all feel unique in their implementation, and the power balances between the player and encounters feels mostly fair. The rules and equipment implementation keeps the power levels from getting out of hand, which is a substantial problem in titles that take too many liberties with the higher level magical armor and weapons. But I could do without some of the meaningless details that don't improve gameplay, like non-consumable spell components and identification. Identifying my +1 crossbow to reveal that it is in fact a +1 crossbow was not a gameplay highlight. The set designs are gorgeous, but there are basically no meaningful environmental interactions. The few that are in the game are mechanically inconsistent, and while they are often functional, they're not strongly immersive. Every time I hit a rock column, it feels very much like I'm playing a video game. The way the game's lore is baked into the story feels great. There's a deeply layered history there with a wonderful set dressing. It's a shame that it's mostly bogged down by mediocre writing. And I don't want to be too harsh. Writing is hard, but it goes back to the lack of polish. You can only hear so many cliches before I begin to roll my eyes and wait for the next set piece. The voice acting is objectively terrible 90% of the time. Dialogue pacing is awful, the lines are bland, and there are so many awkward pauses, it is actually more noticeable when there isn't an awkward pause. There are a handful of standout moments that legitimately made me laugh, but most of the performances for both the party members and key figures like Arwen Merton sound like someone recorded them lying down. And clearly the developers heard the feedback because as of this recording, Solasta 2 is set to feature premier professional talents Ben Starr, Amelia Tyler, Ellen Thomas, and Devora Wild. Those are the voices of main characters from Expedition 33, Baldur's Gate 3, and Netflix's Arcane. The story is well constructed, but mostly forgettable. There are multiple points where the game assumes I know things that I have no reason to, but even without that knowledge, I was never confused about the main goal. There are a few variable player choices here and there, but the adventure is still directed in a straight line to the endpoint. Still, there are certain choices that require you to pay attention, but 90% of the game is fighting your way through it. In the future, I would love to see more of the interactions constructed similarly to the Orc Gate bit. Multiple ways to tackle a problem and get to a solution with varying levels of difficulty. Once again, Solasta 2 demonstrates the devs have been listening, and I appreciate that. If you are one of the many players who enjoy this game for its dungeon maker and community aspect, I can see why. There's a lot to love and a tool that allows you to express your creativity with a recognizable D&D gameplay. But for a person who just wants to play this as a single-player game, there's too many problems for it to stand out as particularly good. The one thing I will remember this game for is, unfortunately, the overwhelming lack of polish on the final product that makes it feel unfinished. A fun tactical battle is going great, and then a menu bug makes the buttons malfunction. You push into a column and it falls sideways instead of straight. You're listening to an important lore drop, but you have no association to any of the names mentioned with it because you failed your dialogue rolls and they haven't built fail-safes to keep the player informed. You're enjoying the relaxing city ambiance, but then the music plays over itself or stops abruptly. None of these things take much away from the game individually, but they compound fast during extended play sessions and overshadow the pieces that excel. That's my verdict. Solasta, Crown of the Magister, is the 2020 Rolls-Royce, with the flat tire and a leaky roof, a cracked windshield, and one of the speakers doesn't work, and the taillight is out. But there are still 4 working seats, out of 10. Thanks for watching. Catch Miss Yoshi streaming over on Twitch, or stop by my other channel where I talk about some of the more recent games I've played. If you enjoyed the video, do all the YouTube stuff. It really helps me promote the channel and make more videos like this one. Thanks again, and I'll see you all in the next one.